What did you say? Flagpole.
Take your stinking paw off me, you damn dirty ape!
No! You're a wizard, Harry.
In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you.
And I care! What is the deal?
No, do me a favor, Captain. Go fuck yourself.
Language.
Why so serious?
What's your favorite scary movie?
I'm vengeance.
Avengers!
Assemble.
Welcome back to That's So Random, the most random podcast on the internet. And with me today is not Andrew, because he doesn't want to talk about these good X-Men movies, but I got Darren McClemens from the Pipeline podcast with me again to talk about Logan.
Hello, I'm here to talk about a good-ass movie.
Man, and by the time this comes out, it'll probably be July, like the beginning of July. So we are going to be under a month away from Deadpool and Wolverine. It's pretty crazy.
Let's go. I can't believe it's real. Like, I'm actually just now finally realizing, like, oh, it comes out in, like, less than 30 days. That's insane. Or, well, a little bit over 30 days when we're
time of recording.
Yeah.
It's about a month away, and it's kind of crazy. I'm kind of getting to that point too. I'm like, okay, I'm about to get to see this movie.
Yeah.
I hope it's good.
It's the most, like, I don't know, like with MCU movies, and again, we've talked about this on here, like, I love the MCU still, but, like, this is easily the most hype there's been for, like, an MCU movie in a long time. Like, a long time, I feel like.
And I kind of forget that it's an MCU movie. Like, I don't really, but that's not really my first thought when I look at this movie. I'm just like, Deadpool and Wolverine, yes, please. I love those characters so much, and I mean,
it was more like a Fox movie, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about all the X-Men movies. Not to spoil anything, but Logan and the Deadpool movies are some of my favorites. So getting those two and they're probably my two favorite characters, and like especially the movies. So getting them together, yes, please. Which they are the only two characters that had solo movies outside of the actual X-Men movies, I guess.
Yeah. I guess New Mutants, if you count those guys.
Yeah, well, nah. Yeah, I don't know if he...
Which is crazy. Like,
there's not been one character
Gambit
that's gotten a title character. Yeah, I remember when we were supposed to get that Gambit movie.
We're supposed to get Gambit. There's rumored we're supposed to get Storm. Like, there's so many X-Men characters I would have loved to get a solo movie. And then it's like, here's New Mutants. Have fun.
I don't know if there's, like, a lot of X-Men characters that would work well with the solo movie, to be honest. Like, Wolverine, Deadpool, yes. I mean, I could see just a Magneto movie, but, like, I feel like you kind of need a hero there to oppose him.
I think Gambit could have been cool. I think
Gambit could definitely be cool. I mean, I think a Rogue movie could work, possibly.
I've wanted a Rogue movie for a while. Yeah, I think Storm is one that I think could be really cool. Like, she just has a household name vibe to me. I've even
I feel like a lot of people like Storm more than I do. And I don't know why. Like, I like her enough, but I've never, like, loved her.
Yeah,
but I think her power in fairness, is really cool.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if she's ever fully got, like, the Storm treatment either. Like, in the movies, she's been absolutely horrendous. And even in, like, the X-Men series, I feel like she's always got shafted. And I feel like it hasn't been until, like, this new season that just came out. And I'm like, oh, yes, that's Storm. Okay.
Interesting. I still need to watch X-Men 97. Need to get around to that.
Each of these, I'm just going to pitch it to you. Each time I'm like, this thing happens. Gotta check it out.
Well, we're talking about Logan today, though. So I guess we'll start just going in. Spoilers for anyone that for some reason hasn't seen this movie. I'm sure anyone listening has seen this movie. So we're just going to talk freely about the movie because it is 7 years old at this point. Oh my lord.
Oh my
2017
gosh.
is when Logan came out. That's kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
And I remember seeing this. This was probably one of the first rated R movies I could see.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, half the times they don't ID you if you look old enough anyway. But
yeah,
I think this was one of the first rated R movies I saw after I was 17 because I would have been 17 when this came out. I had just turned 17. So this was probably just one of the first movies in general I went to see. Just with friends. Didn't need parents to take me or anything because I could drive. I had a license. I had my own ID. I could get into rated R movies without any parents' consent. So it's a memorable theater experience for me. Yeah,
That sounds fun.
I think this and John Wick 2 were like the same year, and they were probably my first two rated R movies on my own because I did see Deadpool the year before, but I saw it with my dad.
Yeah. I saw Joker. That was my first rated R movie, I think.
Oh, I remember seeing Joker too. That was a fun one. Well, I mean, that's not really the word to use with Joker. Not really the
Not
word to
exactly
use with
fun.
Logan either.
No, it's not. I mean, I think elements of this is really, really fun, but like it also is not fun in certain areas.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of like realism to this movie, and I
Yeah,
think it works entirely in its favor.
I agree. Yeah,
So,
I think this is. Sorry,
yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you're good.
No, I know. I was just gonna say it feels the most like comic book movie that there is, right? Like it kind of feels like they're
Yes.
going for cinema instead of going for a comic book movie, which I know a lot of people hate. Like I know people that don't like Logan because of how serious it is and how how it does like because like the Old Man Logan comic, a very famous Wolverine comic, this is very different from that comic book. Even though it takes inspiration, they go a completely different direction. But I think this is one of those situations where I think that's okay. Like, I think they obviously went their own direction with a movie like this. We're like, all right, we got Hugh Jackman. He's old this time. What story do we want to tell with that? And I think they do a good job at that. I think they do a good job at, like, it might not be comic book accurate, but it's a damn good story, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think there's a lot of comic book movies like that you're obviously going to take inspiration from a certain story, but you're not necessarily adapting that story. Like this is
Yeah.
definitely taking inspiration from Old Man Logan, but it's not
Yeah.
Old Man Logan. It's not just a direct adaptation of that. They were doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when you look at when this came out, 2017, we were getting comic book movie after comic book movie at this time. We were getting
Yeah.
like 6 to
Yeah.
8 a year. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air to like have something this different as a comic book
Mhm.
movie, just with the characters you love. For me personally.
I agree. And I'd argue there still hasn't quite been a movie like this since. Like we get a lot of comic book movies every year. I guess kind of the closest would be like The Batman, where that also kind of doesn't feel like an inherent comic book movie. And I guess Joker kind of falls in that
Yeah,
too,
I was
where
gonna say or Joker because like totally this and Joker kind of share a lot of similarities, but
yeah,
like when you go into like story wise, plot wise, like motives, what the character arcs, it's like kind of completely different.
yeah, fully.
So I love just the opening scene of this movie. It's super simple. It's just Logan like sleeping in the back of a limo, and then these thieves are trying to steal his hubcaps, and he's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that if it were you." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And yeah, they try to shoot him as everyone does, and immediately you
Mhm.
get, yeah, this movie is rated R because he slices a dude's hand off.
Yeah, no, fully. And it's such a like I think that's my favorite aspect of this movie is like the issue with Wolverine is I don't know if he necessarily works in PG-13, right? Because I think the inherent fun of Wolverine is like he has claws and he can like shank a dude or he can slice someone's throat open or he can do any of these things. And when you're under like the PG-13 or even like it's very noticeable in like X-Men the animated series or like anything like that where it's like well he can't actually like cut anybody like he just kind of has to punch them you know what I mean or he has to do that with robots or whatever so to actually see Logan be able to hurt people like stab someone or cut someone's throat or like like stab into their like skull it's like that's a real breath of fresh air I thought.
Yeah, because Logan's not one of these heroes like Batman with a no-kill rule, or he's not really
Yeah.
like Spider-Man where he's gonna pull his punches. Like if you upset him, piss him off, he's gonna murder you.
Yeah.
And I just love seeing that. I love he is an older Wolverine, he is sick, he
Yeah.
is dying in this movie, but you still get a lot of that like kind of berserker rage Logan, and
Yeah.
that's what I love.
100%.
So the whole plot, or I guess Logan's arc in this movie, he's dying, his healing factor is deteriorating, and it's because he has terminal adamantium poisoning. So his
Yes.
adamantium skeleton is killing him. Which, I mean,
Yes.
I guess that makes the most sense. Like, if there's anything that's going to deteriorate his healing factor, it'd probably be the metal inside of his body.
Yeah, and at this point, because like I was looking up his age within this one, he's 197 in
Mm.
this movie. That's very old. And then there's even a weirdness to it because then that just shows how weird this universe is. But they were saying like since the Days of Future Past, he's technically 200 because he lived half of that time twice, I guess. So he's like 270 whatever, and it's just like, yeah, he's old, man. And I think they do a good job at showing he's just like a grumpy old man this time around. And I think Hugh Jackman has a lot of fun playing in that, just the like gruff and tough kind of old man type character. That's really fun to watch.
So we bring it up almost every episode, but the X-Men timeline. Okay, so this falls in line with the quote unquote main timeline, right? Like where it's,
Yeah.
I guess First Class is technically part of it, and then Days of Future Past maybe, and then the original trilogy, and then there's what, the X-Men Origins is somewhere in there, the Wolverine and Logan.
Yeah.
Because Charles makes a direct reference to the first X-Men where he finds him as a cage fighter.
Yeah. And I think actually what makes it so sad is it's actually not that far removed from Days of Future Past. Like Days of Future Past at the end of the movie apparently takes place in 2023, and this takes place in 2029. So that's only about like a 5-year gap. Like a lot happened in those 5 years, I feel.
Yeah, like, I mean, all the mutants died. Charles basically killed them
Yeah.
off because of his seizures.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
So yeah, Logan's got antimatter poison. His healing factor is deteriorating, and Charles is having seizures that can just murder everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And
What do you
yeah,
think of
so
Charles here? Because I feel like this is easily the most different Charles. Like I've never seen a Charles like this, I feel.
this- I think this might be Patrick Stewart's best performance as Xavier.
Yeah.
I love him in this movie, especially like towards the end. Like I think in the back half of this movie, it might be the best I've seen Patrick Stewart in anything
Yeah.
because he is just showing up. And there's obviously the last scene he's in that specifically is phenomenal, and we'll get to that. But trying to stay in order here a little bit, trying to not go completely off the rails.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so Logan is keeping Charles in like a tank, for lack of a better term, just locked away and giving him pills to stop the seizures. And they have this conversation, and Logan believes that no mutants have been born in the past 25 years. So this is 2029, so there have been no mutants born that they know about since 2004. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting element to the story that I kind of forgot about. Like this idea that like no other mutants are around. I feel like there's this underwhelming theme of like what was the point? I think that some of these characters go through where like we fought and we fought and we fought, and then they just stopped being born, and then like did everything we go through, did everything Charles went go through, did everything Logan go through, was it any of it worth it? And the answer is yes. We find out by the end of the movie, yes, it is worth it. Yes, there are still people like you, but I thought it was a very fascinating theme as like, because in my mind, this is like the last X-Men movie. Like, yes, I know you had Dark Phoenix, you had New Mutants, but this felt like the last like real, as far as like the main films go, you know what I mean? So like, I kind of thought that was cool.
Definitely, it feels like kind of the ending. It's the ending for Charles.
Yeah.
It's the ending for
It's the
Wolverine. It's
real
kind of
ending, yeah.
the end to the X-Men. And the last shot of the movie is
Yeah.
just perfect for that.
It
And
is, yeah.
yeah, I love the line of so Logan is not very optimistic. He does not have a lot of hope or faith in this movie, and it kind of sucks because he want Logan to have like a happy ending, and he does kind of get that because X-23 kind of brings a lighter side out into him, and you know he's kind of his beacon of hope for the future. But while the first half he does not have that, but you understand why at the same time. And he's like, the line he gives to Charles is like, "We were all part of God's plan, but maybe we were God's mistake." I'm like, oh man, that just hits hard because like when you look at it, it's like
Yeah.
you can view this as a gift or a curse. That's kind of how the mutant abilities, the mutant gene is.
Yeah.
And Charles's response is, "What a disappointment you are." So just the dichotomy between the two and the differences in like their views. That's kind of always been a thing between Wolverine and Charles, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like it's a very different kind of Charles than we're used to. Like, I don't know. Like, Charles is always kind of a dick. Like, I always feel like he kind of sucks, like, underneath all of that. But I feel like normally we see that through the eyes of the younger actor. So to see this through Patrick Stewart was really funny. just to see just them be like, "You're a disappointment. Logan, you suck." And the whole movie is just him like fighting Logan tooth and nail through everything. And I do think it just shows like how much Logan cares as well. Like he doesn't have to be taking care of Charles, but like he put that on himself. He cares that much about him that it's like a father to him in a really sweet way.
Yeah. And when he leaves and Charles just like, "You're waiting for me to die," it's like, that's heartbreaking, man. He's like, I mean, I guess in a way maybe he is, but he's also he's trying to take the best care of you and he, just keep you safe and keep from,
Yeah,
what happened to all the other mutants. He doesn't want that to happen again. That's why he's trying to stop the seizures. He's trying to protect everyone, including yourself.
yeah. And that's also a thing I've never really seen in like a superhero project is like what happens when superheroes get old, right? Like what happens when a powered person is now in a wheelchair and is dealing with seizures, is dealing with all these things that they gotta deal with. Like I that's a fun pitch. Like I want to see like a nursing home for superheroes. What a pitch that would be.
I'm just surprised the boys hasn't explored that.
Yeah, oh man, that'd be right up their alley.
Yeah, exactly. Because they already do all this other I don't really want to say weird, but kind of off the wall stuff you don't see in mainstream comics,
Yeah.
but they ground it as if it was in the real world. Like these are real world problems that people deal with. So what would happen if you had the superpower to go along with it?
Yeah, I feel like maybe everyone's still too young for a storyline like that because I think not Gen V, I'm sorry, V is still pretty newer, right? Everyone's in like their 20s or 30s that have the V,
Yeah.
so
Well, other than
maybe that's
Soldier Boy and stuff.
true.
And all, I guess most of the mutants or most of the suits that were around with Soldier Boy are dead. Like all of
Yeah.
them are basically dead now since
hmm
Noir bit the dust in season 3.
Or yeah,
Rest in
or like
peace.
everyone that is old looks young and acts young, so
Yeah. But Gabriella is this woman with X-23 and she's like, "Logan, I need your help." So I think this movie does a really good job of setting everything up within the first 10 to 15 minutes.
yeah,
And I like how
I agree.
this woman is just shouting at him at this funeral. I'm like, what? Of all places, why would you choose a funeral to ask him for help? Like, why would you not wait until he's somewhere else, less personal?
Yeah.
That just seemed really off. He finds out that Gabriella is in some business he doesn't want to be involved with, and she ends up dying. She doesn't really play that important of a role other than introducing X-23.
No.
And what did
I'll,
you think of the X-23 reveal scene when Charles is communicating to Logan this is the mutant I've been talking to, and Logan's like, "She's not a mutant. What's her ability? Eating?"
No, I love that entire fight sequence. It's very like I haven't seen them, but it felt very like Mad Max. Like it felt very like a very different kind of fight scene that I mean, I would actually say just kind of one of my favorite things about this movie are the fight scenes. I already mentioned the violence and stuff like that, but I feel like they're able to do fight scenes that they were never able to do before because of the rating, because of just the inherent funness of just being able to cut someone up. And I don't remember what my first reaction to her was because I didn't watch this movie for the first time until 2020, so I already knew like the plot of the film. Like I knew there was going to be a younger girl. I knew she also had claws. Like I knew all these things. But I think she's a great addition. I think this young actress, I know she's in the Accolade at the moment. A lot of people are talking about her again. Now everyone's like, "Are you in Deadpool 3?" and all this kind of fun stuff. But I think for such a young actress, she does a really good job at this role. Like I think I love she does really good at like facial expressions and like she says things without having to say anything in a really good way. So I love her in this movie.
Yeah, you needed someone with her acting range that could be good with those
Yes.
facial expressions and say something without saying anything because obviously she doesn't really talk until the last 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
But I love the scene. She brings the dude's head out and she rolls it on the
Yeah.
ground and everyone's just looking like the bad guys, the company's like, "Okay, Laura, take a step back, chill out." And
It's so good.
Logan and Professor X are just kind of looking like, what's going on? And when the claws come out, Hugh Jackman's facial expression of that is so fucking perfect. Like, this is Hugh Jackman's best performance. I'll say it.
100%. Yeah.
I love him in this movie.
I mean, I feel like this is probably the only time I've truly loved Logan as a character in these movies. Like, even the films I enjoy him when they're in, I never find Logan to be, like, especially, like, interesting or fascinating. I guess the closest I am with that would be, like, Days of Future Past. I think he works very well there, but, like, he feels like an actual character here. And this feels like the first time where, like, oh, this feels like Logan to me. And I think he's great here.
Right, it's phenomenal, and like I mean, the
Yeah.
movie, uh, the title is fitting because I mean that
Yeah.
character makes or breaks this movie.
100%.
And yeah, Hugh Jackman does not miss a beat. He's phenomenal in every single scene. Every scene of every line of dialogue he gives is basically perfection. And it's like, oh my god, this is Wolverine. This is Wolverine come to life. And that same thing with the
Yeah.
action scenes. It's like this feels like Wolverine not watered down. This feels like straight up Wolverine just murking people. And I mean, he's getting his ass handed to him from time to time, but that's my Wolverine right there.
Yeah. And I mean, he kind of has to as well, right? The whole story surrounds him not doing too well and not
Yeah,
doing so
I mean,
high.
he's literally dying if he's not
Yeah.
if he's kinda still kicking ass and taking names to all these especially X-24 later on, like, just basically a better
Mhm.
version of him, a healthier version of him, like, it wouldn't make too
Yeah.
much sense.
Yeah, and I also think that just ups the stake of a movie like this. Like you have like we've had Wolverine in a lot of these movies, and I feel like I've never had a sense of, oh, Logan's going to die here. Oh, Logan might fail here. It was like, well, no, he can just heal. Like there's no real stakes in a character like Logan a lot of the time. And a movie like this where it's like, well, if he gets stabbed in the head, he's probably just gonna die. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna have a hard time healing from this, or this. He's healing at such a slow level that yeah, he can die from a lot of the things that he's doing. I think it adds a great stake to it.
Oh, what about the plot line? This obviously plays a very, very integral and important role later on, but the whole plot line of him think- co- compl- contemplating killing himself, like with the antimatter bullet.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
like
that's
it's
great.
it deals with heavy, heavy stuff,
It does.
and like
That's so
just
Logan. Like I feel like he just does that.
yeah, and it's just the realism this movie deals with. Like I mean, people deal
Yeah.
with that kind of stuff. People have those kinds of thoughts.
And especially like it makes sense. Again, he has now lived over 200 years at this point. Like he has seen all he's going to see, and most of that I would assume is death. It is sadness. It is hatred. I mean, he's now seen the X-Men die twice, right? He
It
saw,
kind of goes back to the scene of Days of Future Past where James McAvoy's Professor X is like reading his mind. He's like, "No,
yeah,
I don't want your pain,
yeah,
you sad,
yeah.
sad man."
And he's only gone through more sad since then. Like he's had to relive the trauma that he's gone through.
Yeah, like all the
He's now,
mutant kind is dead, or he
yeah.
presumes so, other than he, Caliban, and Charles. Like he thinks they are the last three left.
And to like that must
Mhm.
also suck. Like he's seen the end of the world. He went back in time to fix it, and it still ended not that far different than when he went back to save it. Like mutants are dead still. Like that must weigh heavy. That must suck.
Yeah. I I don't know why, but I thought it was funny, like, every time he was, like, watching the videos on the phone, which I'm about to get to the mutant children and the X-23 projects, because there's obviously more than Laura, there's a whole group of them, but he discovers those, but I find it funny every time he's, like, watching a video or, like, reading something, he has to put his glasses on. I don't know, it just brings that whole idea of old man Logan out. It's like, yep, he's definitely old. He's gotta whip out those reading glasses to
Yeah,
even see what's going on. And like when the
yeah.
Caliban just calls him out on like all this shit, he's like, "Look, you asked me for help. I can't really help you if you're not gonna tell me anything." And he's like, "By the way, that label says ibuprofen. I can tell you're having trouble reading it."
Yeah. And I think that also there's a real effect to that because first movie came out 2002. This came out 2017. Like that's like half a decade. That's over
The
a
first
decade
movie
worth
was
of.
2000.
Was it 2000?
Yeah, it
So
was
yeah,
2000.
that's a lot of time to be playing one role, and I think I didn't grow up on these movies like I wish I would have, but people who would have, you grew up on Wolverine, right? You are growing up alongside of him, so I bet for a lot of people this was probably a very emotional movie to see. Like, oh, he's old now. Hugh Jackman's getting older now. Logan's old now. I'm old now.
Yeah, I can't remember if I shed a tear or not at any point in this movie, but I remember being pretty emotional. Like first watch, I'm like, oh my god, this
Sure.
like this is it's Hugh Jackman's swan song as Wolverine.
It is, yeah. And man, like, and I binged all these movies in one go, so like I didn't feel the effect of watching him over the course of almost 20 years. But I don't know,
Yeah.
you
Well,
definitely still
obviously,
feel the weight.
obviously, I
Yeah,
was 1 year old when the original X-Men came out, so I didn't watch it over the course of 20 years, but.
I wasn't born yet when it came out.
I probably saw. I want to say I saw, which I didn't see Last Stand until this year. That was my first time watching it because I skipped it. I've done that with a lot of comic book movies that have gotten a bad rap, which I need to get around to watching some of those that have kind of gotten a bad rap because
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I feel like I can't call myself a comic book fan having not seen these just because, oh, I hear they're bad, so I'm not gonna watch them. It's like, so what? So what? Just get through it. I've seen bad movies before. So I'm glad I got through the X-Men movies I hadn't seen, Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine, but I want to say I saw the first X-Men and X2 at a pretty young age, like
Sure.
elementary school for sure, maybe 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. And I was
Yeah.
17 when Logan came out, so I had almost 10 years with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, no, and like I didn't watch these movies growing up, but like I still knew I knew who Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was. Like it was a huge impact in pop culture. Everyone knew who Hugh Jackman. Everyone knew who Wolverine was. You saw his posters everywhere. You saw the movies being played everywhere. Like I'd argue prior to the MCU, he was like one of the big faces of like comic book and superheroes. So like his impact is heard throughout like the pop culture.
Yeah, no, like growing up before the MCU, I'd say the biggest like just faces of comic book movies and therefore really just the comic book industry because
Yeah.
let's face it, the movies are like what made comic books the most notable. Like people were into comics before, but movies obviously brought a lot more eyeballs to those
Yes.
characters. I'd say Christopher Reeve as Superman, Michael Keaton
Hmm.
as Batman, uh, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Those were like the big four pre-MCU.
Yeah. Sure. And
Which,
like I mean
which
I would even argue Christian Bale did a huge part of that. Like obviously that came out the same time as Iron Man, but like at the time that was huge, right?
well,
Everyone was
Batman
like, "Oh,
Begins was 3 years before Iron Man, so that's fair.
okay, yeah, so sure." I forgot about that. I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh
The
yeah,
Dark
there's
Knight
one."
was the same year as Iron Man.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I want to rewatch those movies now. Damn it!
Oh my god.
You just have to mention the Dark Knight trilogy. I'm like,
No.
I want to watch them.
What have I done?
Guess what I'm doing tonight? No, I need to watch X and Pearl. Me and Everest are hopefully going to talk about that soon. On my other show, Giggly Gorillas, go check that out if you haven't.
Plug.
Yep, you got to have those mid-roll plugs every now and then.
Oh yeah.
So before I get into the whole X-23 and X-24 projects, let's just talk about something a little more lighthearted and funny. There's those are kind of foreign in between in those movies, in this movie specifically. But the supermarket scene where Laura is just like he's got the glasses, which I remember those glasses being like such a trailer spot. Like she was rocking those shades in like every trailer I saw
Yeah.
before this movie came out. And like yeah, like the shot I remember the most probably well, first is Logan running through the woods near the end, and the obviously classic like Wolverine pop with the claws out.
Yeah.
But second is just them riding in the car and her looking out the window with those shades. But yeah, what did you think of her just getting a can of Pringles and a drink and putting some shades on and trying to get out of there?
It's no, I love I don't know. I'm always a big sucker for like like a grocery store heist scene in movies like this. Like there was a fun motif, and I love the aspect of like Logan doesn't care if she stole a bunch of stuff. He just cares that he almost murdered that innocent man.
Oh my
And
god,
like
I love that.
he's like he does it too. He's like, oh yeah, I'm mistaken to see ya.
He's like, she flips him over, first of all. I don't know how strong this girl is. She flips this grown man, then pulls out her claws and is like, yeah! And Logan just comes in, grabs her hand, hey, that's not okay! And he's like, do you sell iPhone chargers? And he points at him.
It's so good.
Grabs
Yeah.
the iPhone charger, and him and X-23 get out of there. It's fucking hilarious.
That poor guy. Like, do you just go back to work after that? Like, do you quit?
Yeah, literally, like, what? I don't know what I would do. There's no way he's getting paid enough for that shit.
I'm probably quitting on the spot. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
me too.
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah,
No.
I'm out. I'm gonna go find better paying jobs somewhere else. I'm gonna get, like, far, far away from here because that was insane. With his luck, he'd probably moved to North Dakota and he'd see them again. Be like the guy, the restaurant worker, and Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You're not gonna know what I'm talking about probably because I don't know if you've gotten that far in, but
I don't think so.
he moves to Minnesota and they or Minneapolis, yeah, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they go to watch the Patriots and Eagles play in the Super Bowl, and that guy's just there. He's like, "Oh my God, you guys again! I moved here to get away from you."
Great.
Okay, yeah, but the X-23. So I guess they were calling all these kids X-23s because later on, Dr. Rice is like, "Oh, the X-23s. We thought raising them at a young age, we could raise them without a conscience, but you got to manufacture the rage."
Huh.
Yeah, but it's revealed that there are mutants out there. These children are, I guess, the last few in existence as far as we know.
Yeah.
And Gabriella is trying to get them to the safe haven that she calls Eden. And then it's revealed the F-24 project is revealed, and it's going to be a clone of Wolverine, a direct clone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest, like a lot of this movie, and I don't remember which one. I think Stranger Things came out first, but this movie really like reminds me of a bit of Stranger Things. Like you have the idea of like, oh, the bunch of scientists work on a bunch of these kids, and they all have superpowers. They have to escape the lab, and then there's the store scene, and I feel like even like X-23 is very remnant of like obviously they're different things, but like it really like reminds me of like 11. And then you even have the like Logan and like the found family father daughter thing that I think Hopper and 11 have. And I'm watching this movie, I'm like, this just gives me Stranger Things vibes. I don't know.
Stranger Things was first, but I want to say it was just the year before, so there's no way they didn't start filming this before that came out.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying someone copied. I'm just saying
Yeah.
they gave off similar vibes.
It's crazy that happens a lot of times. Like things will come out so close together, and there's no way that they stole like one stole from the other, but they are kind of the same. They have so many parallels.
Yeah.
And what did so this is a very interesting thing about this movie to me. What did you think about X-Men comics like being canon in this universe?
That's interesting to me because, like, that's one of the big reasons a lot of people say, like, oh, it takes place on another Earth or whatever. I don't think it needs to. Like, I think it makes sense within this world. I feel like that's something we do in our own world, where
There's biographies.
Yeah, like we have like Abraham Lincoln comic books, right? Like that's a weird thing to make a comic book off of, but it happened, right? There's fiction on like 9/11 and weird things like that. You know what I mean? So like,
it's like if these guys existed in the real world, there's no way that some schmo somewhere would not write a comic book over them.
I mean, literally the like Titanic thing that happened last year. Like Netflix is already making a movie about it. Like, of course, that just happens. I feel like you have like Agent Elvis, which is like Elvis if he was a superhero. Like, of course they'd make comic books off of it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was very interesting because I can't recall that being. I mean, maybe the Deadpool's, but Deadpool's a character that breaks the fourth wall, so it's not really it's a different thing there. I don't recall it being present in any of these other movies, or I can't even think of another comic book movie that like it's really a thing in. Like, I know there are
Well,
comic book movies where comic books are a thing, but specifically, those
yeah.
characters are comic book characters.
I'm trying to think. I mean, the CW stuff kind of did stuff like that before. Like you would have oh, where'd you learn the idea of like a flash symbol? And it's like I read it in a comic book. Like you that kind of stuff. Like Naomi, that show no one talked about. Like that was weird because they lived in a world with Superman, but then Superman was also in the comic book. It was weird. It was a weird what they did there. But like, yeah, no, I definitely think it's one of the more interesting parts of this movie. Like you have Wolverine reading himself in a comic book, and that kind of ties into like the overall plot of the movie in an interesting way. So
And I love
I
how
like it.
he doesn't disregard everything. He says most of this is bullshit. He doesn't say all of this. So some of the stuff that they had in the comic book had a
Yeah,
precedence, which some stuff the X-Men probably did made national news. So of course there's probably some fact.
yeah. I mean, they were like good-looking suits, so obviously a lot of it was fiction. Uh,
Yeah, and I like how the Eden, the safe haven, he finds in a comic panel of one of those
yeah,
X-Men comics, and he's like, "Wait a minute!" And it's the exact numbers that Gabriella gave him. He's like,
yeah,
yeah, she got this from a comic book."
yeah. That's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird little subplot. I feel like. It
Yeah, it
just
was.
happens to be the same, I guess. I guess I don't really explain that part of it, huh? Like it. All right.
Another thing I don't like that, I guess, sort of on the other side of the fence, is the hotel scene between Charles and Laura. They're
That's good.
watching the movie Shane, which I've never seen Shane. I really only know
Mhm.
this scene from the movie, but I know that it's an older Western movie, and I'm pretty sure it had a pretty big inspiration in making this movie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
You said it's
Mangold
called
took a
Shane.
yeah,
That's what it's
Shane.
called.
It's from 1953, I believe.
In 53. True. I just looked it up. I was like, huh. I was wondering if it was like be funny if like Patrick Stewart starred in it or something. I don't think he's that old.
I was gonna say, yeah, I don't think he's that old.
That'd be funny though. No, yeah, no, he's not.
Yeah, and then I don't know why, but this moment where Xavier has the seizure is one of the more memorable moments in the movie to me because
Yeah.
it's just like everything is stopped essentially, except for Logan, and you see X-23 crawling on the floor once he gets there. But I like how
Yeah.
Logan's just like slowly moving and everyone else is kind of still, and he's just stabbing dudes in the head. He's like, "I'm just gonna murder you. You're trying to kill Charles. You're trying to get this girl. Screw you. I can fight through this. You can't, so you're getting 3 claws through the
Yeah, yeah. It's. I think it's such an also an interesting like dilemma because it's not a villain. Logan can just punch, right? It's Charles, so it's an issue he has to like almost think his way around. Like he can't just like stab the problem. He has to get the medicine. He has to crawl his way through. He has to do this. And again, I think it's really interesting how they've classified Charles as a huge issue, right? Like a huge like weapon of like mass destruction, right? I think that's a very interesting thing and just shows how bad the world has kind of got in terms of like mutant rights and stuff like that.
Yeah, and after the scene, they're on the run, and you get the truck scene where they get like run off the road, and then the family with the horses gets run off, and the horses start getting out, and they're like, "Oh!" Charles is like, "Oh, we gotta help them, Logan," and he's like, "Someone will come along." And this was a line from the trailer, as I really remember. Charles was just like, "Someone has come along," and I'm like, "Okay, that is like very classic Professor X. Like that is something any version of Professor X probably would do.
And I love
Probably
the
like
scene of him like using his powers to like line up the horses for them. Like that's a
yeah.
such like unique way to use his powers, and especially since he doesn't get to use his powers very much in this movie, like outside of the seizures, like he's really doped up throughout most of it. So I thought that was a cool little scene.
Yeah, and then we get to the scene, so they invite him back to dinner. And I think this is the scene you were talking at the beginning, and we kind of discussed it a bit, how this is like the least comic book movie. I think this dinner scene is like the epiphany of that. Like
Hmm.
this feels like a scene you would see in like a Coen Brothers movie or something.
Yeah,
Like, this does not feel like it belongs in a comic book movie, but it just worked so well with the tone they were going for and how grounded it was and the story they were telling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that was such nice because obviously that's like the calm before the storm, right? Things are about to go to
Yes,
shit,
indeed.
and then like they get to have that one last final family dinner. Like I even love the things where like, well, he used to run a school, and I was like, well, I was never a good student, and he's like, well, I'm not gonna lie, like that was such a nice little moment within them. Before obviously the last real moment, way before Charles dies and everyone basically oh my gosh, I guess only one of the characters made it out of that scene or like by the end of the movie, which is kind of wild. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, by the end of the movie, you're right. Because, I mean, only two of them make it out of the house.
And one of them dies later. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I felt so bad for this family. Like as soon as they kind of like get introduced, like, oh, you can come home, and I was like, gosh damn it, they're gonna die. Dang it.
I guess Charles sort of made it out of the house because he didn't quite die yet, but he died in the
Yeah.
back of that truck. But
Ah,
dude, Charles's death is so heartbreaking. Like I don't know, it's probably Logan's for me just because I like Logan more as a character, but Charles's death and Logan's death are two of the most heartbreaking deaths in any comic book movie, and maybe just any movie in general that I've seen ever. They are handled
oh wow.
so insanely well. Because
Yeah.
Charles's death, he has this monologue of just like reflection before he dies, and just thinking that Logan is the one that stabbed him too in
Oh,
his
it's
last minutes.
heartbreaking. Yeah.
I'm glad that he got that clarity of like Logan coming and holding him in his arms. He's like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm glad he got that before he actually died because if
Yeah.
not, that would have been so tragic. But he
Yeah.
has this line and he's like, this was without a doubt the most perfect night I've had in a very long time.
Yeah,
But I
that's the
don't
heartbreak.
yeah, but I don't deserve it, do I? I did something unspeakable. And he's talking about killing all of the mutants. And he said something
Yeah.
like, I didn't remember before tonight. You never told me. In his last words before X-24 stabs him, or I think I finally understand you, Logan. And then he gets stabbed. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so bittersweet.
So good. Yeah. And I do love the like dark tone of like Professor X killing his own students. Like I like there's a part of me that wants to see that scene and like what that looks like. But also like I don't want to see that because I bet that's absolutely heartbreaking for him. It's very like I guess not exactly because it was Jean there, but the like Wolverine and the X-Men kind of opening of it all, right? Where look, we don't know what happens and they all just kind of die from like a psychic attack type thing. But yeah, that's a great scene.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then X-24 just murders that entire family. It's kind of screwed up that he kills the son first, and his mom just like sees her dead son before she dies.
Yeah.
Then, man, I was so upset that the dad. Well, he shot X-24 first, so he kind of saved Logan from getting murdered by him in that moment. But then he turns the gun on Logan. I'm like, look, Logan didn't mean for this to happen, man. He did not mean to bring this upon you.
He just didn't care at that point. Like his wife and kid was dead. He was
Yeah.
dying. He was like, "Screw it, man! Like you destroyed my entire." I mean, I would argue it is kind of still their fault, right? Because they decided to go to the house for the meal, which led them there. So it is still kind of Logan's fault, but not
It's
really.
kind of Charles's fault because Charles is the one that wanted to go to the house. Logan wasn't going to go.
That actually might be one of the funniest scenes in the movie, where it's like, like we're okay. He's like, dinner would be nice. That'd be great.
I can
Yeah,
see
that's so
Grandpa doing that though, like just the reluctant son being like, I mean, they're not actually
We'd
father son,
love
obviously,
to.
but they very much play it like that, and just you've gotten to see so much of Professor X with Logan throughout the years that you buy
Uh,
into like, yeah, and just I mean, if you've seen anything else X-Men outside of these movies, it's like
yeah,
that connection is always kind of there.
100%.
And yeah, so dude, Laura's screams throughout this movie, but especially like when X-24 is carrying her out of the house. are so incredible. I'm like, oh my lord, she is screaming her lungs out. It's pretty impressive.
She's great. Yeah.
And just the fact that, like, up to that point, that's basically, like, that's all the noise she had made, is just screams. Like,
Yeah.
whether it's rage or just, like, I guess of anguish in this moment.
Sure.
And then
And
Dr. Rice's line I was talking about earlier was, "You can't nurture rage, you must simply design it from scratch." So that's where X-24 came from.
yeah.
And then when Logan and X-23 are in the car, they're on their way to North Dakota to Eden, to the safe haven. And X-23 starts speaking in Spanish, and Logan's like, "You can talk?" And he's like, what the hell was the past 2,000 miles about?"
What's your thoughts on just like their like dynamic? Because I think I'm a big fan of that trope in media of the like the grumpy old man and the like little girl and like the road trip element of it all. Like I feel like that's such a big thing in media now, and I don't know, it's like a trope that never gets old to me, I feel.
It's like, it wouldn't work if their connection didn't grow as much as it did through this movie. But it does. And it's not simply just because Logan knows she is her daughter. Like, they go through the same tragedies, they go through the same loss. Like, there's a real connection there by the time she loses Logan.
Yeah. And you know, I think like not to skip to the end here, but like I love her little arc of like I could have a parent. Like she's never had a real parent before, and that like Logan's clearly the closest thing she'd ever get to that, and she's just trying to like it feels like she's like silently hoping the entire time, like maybe he will stay with me, maybe he can be my dad. And again, I feel like all of that gets across from her never saying those things. Like it's just kind of reading her emotions and the like tiny things she does say, and it's like it's heartbreaking when she's like, "Well, he's dead, so that's not going to happen for me." It's
Yeah,
ugh.
and she doesn't actually call him dad or daddy until he's dead, does she? Because, like, when he dies, like, after he takes his last breath, she's like, "Daddy?" And she's
Yeah.
just
Oh my
holding
god.
him in her arms, and it's like, no, man, this is so heartbreaking.
Yeah. Whew.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's a great, and I think it's this movie I think easily has the best Wolverine moments, like the scene where he takes the drug and he's just running through the forest, just attacking everybody in just the most Wolverine fashion. I think
Man,
it's the
I
most
love that
Wolverine he's
scene.
ever been.
That
Yeah,
scene
it's so
is
good.
so good. Just Logan in that scene, his intensity, Hugh Jackman brings it. Incredible. And I like that, like, each of the mutant children kind of get a moment to shine too. And I like that Pierce, the main bad guy, the one that came into Logan's limousine at the beginning, got his
Yeah,
comeuppance, and all those kids just like basically used all their powers on him. And it was the one that I guess she could control like plant life because she was like strangling him with
yeah,
grass or whatever. I'm glad
yeah,
that dude got his comeuppance. It was about time. And Dr. Rice, dude. So his speech, he's like giving the speech to Logan, and Logan's like, he's like, "I believe you knew my father," and Logan's like, "Yeah, he's the one that put this poison inside of me," and he's like, "Yeah, he was one of them." He's like, "Yeah, I believed I killed him," and Dr. Rice is just like, "Yeah." And Pierce is like, "You better show him some respect. He's the one that did away with your kind." And like later on, Logan just straight up shoots this man. Like Logan had a gun. That is
yeah.
something I did not remember. I forgot that Logan was carrying in this movie. I'm like, that's how you know this man is sick. Like the antimaterium claws, they just aren't cutting it anymore. This man resorted to a revolver. I rewinded it when that happened. I'm like, wait, did Logan just shoot that man?
He did.
And he sure enough did. Oh man, probably one. Oh, Deadpool would be proud.
He would. I'm kind of curious because I feel like there's been a really interesting conversation about Logan recently with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out in a couple weeks at this point. But like there's conversations about like do you think having Hugh Jackman as Wolverine back, even if it's a different version of him, do you think that will undermine this movie's ending in any way, or do you think it will stay intact?
If it's a different version, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think the only reason they're gonna have Hugh Jackman back is because they can't recast Wolverine yet, can they? Because of contracts.
Yeah. It's they can't recast until 2025 apparently, which that and also
Which
just
I'm not gonna complain about getting Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine as long as it's a different version, because I think this was the perfect ending for this version of the character that we spent all those years
this
with.
version of the character. Yeah. I think I would have again, I'm also not like super attached to this version of the character or anything. Like again, I think outside of Logan, they didn't give me much of a reason to. Like I think a lot of it can come across very shallow to me. But like I think the reason why I am so excited for him to come back is I feel like he can finally play the version of the character that he's wanted to play for a long time, and fans have been wanting him to play for a long time. And it feels just so fitting for his final appearance here, or if that's in Secret Wars or whatever it may be, to be the one in the yellow spandex, the one we've been dreaming of him for being for so many
Yes,
years.
I'm very happy we're gonna see Hugh Jackman in that outfit, because we should
I'm
have gotten it
so
way
ready.
back in 2000.
Yeah, the fact it feels like, and again, like even like in the comic books here in the movie, I mean, you see him in the yellow suit, and it's just like, this is what I wanted. Like the X-Men that he's reading about, that's kind of what I wanted to see.
I honestly never understood why they were scared of it, because it's like Superman's wearing his traditional suit in the Reeds films. No one had a problem with that. Spider-Man is wearing his classic suit in the Raimi films. No one had a problem with that. Why are you so scared of
Yeah.
the yellow spandex?
There's such a fear. Like there was such a fear for such a long time. It makes me so happy that it feels like these studios are finally realizing, like, oh, people want a little bit of cheesiness. Like people want, like even like in like Avengers, like Hawkeye had that really boring black suit for how many years? Like they didn't give him the purple silly suit for how long? You know? So
yeah, people just want these characters to look like they do on the page. I mean,
yeah. And you know, like I can get it back then. Like clearly they're not aiming for the comic book audience, like necessarily. They're aiming for the new people, right? The people who don't know who Wolverine is and stuff like that. But now we don't live in that world. Now people do know who Wolverine is. They know who Cyclops is, and now I feel like they're finally confident enough to show that, which
and
is nice.
as like as divisive as say Batman v Superman is, I think a lot of people think Ben Affleck has the best Batman suit. I think he has the best Batman suit.
Looks good. Yeah. I mean, I think he's one of the best casted Batmans. I just don't love that version.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think him as Batman in Batman v Superman specifically may be my favorite Batman performance in a single movie.
Yeah.
But Michael Keaton is still my guy. Overall.
I think he could have easily been the best Batman. He just never got to do
I wish he had more of an arc in
Yeah, he never.
Justice League, and I wish we would have gotten a solo film. I'm still. Oh, I want. I'm just saying, honestly, if it was up to me to have the Batman 2 or to get Ben Affleck back as Batman and have him direct that Batman movie, I'd pick Ben Affleck in a heartbeat.
If it wasn't for like the toxic fan, like if I could just get that movie and not have the internet go crazy over it, like I'd be like, yeah, like have one movie, it doesn't affect anything, and then it's done. Like that's it. Like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to people being like, "They're Snyder" or whatever. Like just have it come out. I'd be like, yeah, I might agree. Because I want to see his Batman movie.
I will always be sad we never got that. Like if we can somehow get him back for that, just do it as an Elseworlds film under the Elseworlds label,
Cool.
I would be so down. Give me it right now.
Even animated, I think, would be kind of cool. Just having them voice it. Like I know that's not the same in certain ways because we want to see in live action, but like I take that even. Like I think that's one of the weirdest things about like the DCU. Like we live in a culture where everyone wants everything Batman, but we never got a Batman movie. But we got 2 Suicide Squad movies, we got 2 Shazam movies, we got 2 Aquaman movies. Like what a weird world we live in. Like what a weird timeline.
It is very, very odd. But I guess in Logan, we talked about Logan's death. We talked about the final action scene, the final moment Laura and he shared. So of course it ends with them burying him, and it's the cross that she turns over into an X, and that's the final shot of the movie. So perfect, man. Such a good way to end this.
I love how simplistic it ends. Like he dies, and then it's just like, well, it's over. Like there's no.
I remember when I saw that for the first time. I'm like, I guess when you do tilt a crossover like that, it does form an X. That's pretty cool.
That is so good. And I'm not to get way off tracking. I'm so sorry, but like that's something I do kind of want to see from like Deadpool and Wolverine. Like I think that'd be really funny if he's just like, I'm gonna go find my friend Logan, and we just like smash cut to him like sitting there looking at the X, and I'd just be like, well, damn. Like I think that'd be really funny.
I can see that happening, and then he finds the TVA, and they're like, "Oh, there's this Wolverine." He's like, "Oh yeah, it'll have to do."
Uh,
Surely there's gonna be something like that. I don't see them not acknowledging this version of the character.
yeah. I mean, I mean, she said she's not in the movie, but I would love Laura in here. I think that'd be really, really cool. If she can get a little cameo or even like a little part of the movie, like I think it'd be cool. I don't know how you would do it if you would just have her interact with Wade, or if she would interact with this version of Logan, because I feel like they kind of are going through similar things. Because this version of Logan, obviously, like we heard in the trailers, he lost everyone on his Earth, right? Like he failed to save his X-Men team, and I feel like there's a lot of parallels between those two versions. So
Yeah. I think it's going to be kind of similar in the spirit of this version of Wolverine, but not specifically this version. So,
yeah, yes, I agree.
well, Darren, Andrew's not here to give the ridiculous grading skill, so I guess we're just gonna.
Oh,
I guess we can just do. What should I guess? X-23 out of 23. What would you give Logan?
out of 23, I think I'd probably give it a 22 and a half. I think this is a nearly perfect movie. Like it's one of those movies when you bring up Logan, it's just like, yeah, everyone loves Logan because there's nothing to really hate about this movie. I think it has a pretty simple story. It does what it needs to do, and it goes home. And there's a reason why people call this one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. And I think that's still to this day very valid.
Well, X-24 is the one that killed Logan, and then X-23 put the antimatter bullet through his skull, which we didn't mention, even though I said the antimatter bullet played a huge role. So
Yeah.
can I cheat and give this a 24 out of 23?
Hell yeah.
That's what I'm gonna do, because I don't see an X-Men movie. Well, spoiler alert for when we probably rank these.
Yeah.
I don't see an X-Men movie being better than this one.
Yeah. It's the top of my list at the moment. And to be fair, it's not a high bar necessarily. Like I don't think there's really been anything, as much as I like Days of Future Past and First Class, I do think this is easily the best one in this universe of movies. Like by a lot.
I think it's just, I mean, simply got the best story and the best
Yeah.
storytelling, and it's got great performances to complement that.
Hmm.
So,
I
yeah,
agree.
near perfect movie.
But Deadpool and Wolverine, maybe by some miracle they're like, hey, let's make a masterpiece. That'd be crazy.
I would be I'm hoping I really love it, but I would be so impressed if I liked it more than Logan.
That would be amazing.
That would
The
be
MCU
incredible.
needs something like that. Just like, hey, here's a perfect piece of cinema. Here you go.
They do need something like that right about now, because
Yeah.
they've kind of been on the downhill slope for a minute. Well, Guardians 3 was good. That was a highlight of last
I
year.
did.
But we'll be back next time. Well, talking about Deadpool and Deadpool 2. Be getting those out of the way before Deadpool and Wolverine, hopefully. And we'll try to get to New Mutants after that. It's we're gonna be on the time crunch on New Mutants. Will we get to that before Deadpool and Wolverine, or will it have to wait until after? I guess we'll find out. But
Really funny.
in the meantime, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, at the Red Arrow on YouTube. You can find some other Marvel content, mostly DC stuff, I'll be honest. I'm kind of a DC fanboy. I got a lot of Batman videos over there. We were talking about him earlier. So go check that out if you're a fan of any of that or just film in general. Darren, is there anything you would like to plug?
Yeah, I do the Pipeline podcast every Thursday. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but this week we're ranking every Spider-Man movie with all the movies just recently coming into theaters. So look out for that.
Ooh, interesting.
Fun.
Man, I might have to check that one out. I'll
Hey,
probably be at
thank you,
work
thank
when
you.
when you drop it, but I'll watch it after the fact.
I appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you've been on this X-Men tour with me. We're nearing the end. I can't believe it, but
I,
we set out on a mission and we are about to accomplish it.
Yes, I mean I appreciate it. I probably would not have rewatched all these movies without you asking me, and I think I actually might appreciate Deadpool and Wolverine more now that I've rewatched all of this stuff.
Oh, I love that. I think I'm hoping I appreciate it more too, watching all these movies so
Yeah,
recently. Because I mean, we have watched all of them in the year 2024, so it's been
yeah.
a nice little
It's
slow
been a
burn
fun year. Yeah.
for sure. Well, until next time, this has been That So Random.
Bye.